Yeah, sure. Hi, Sean. Any updates in terms of the injury and COVID situation?
Injury-wise, Conor Robertson's back on the grass and beginning to make progress, but not there yet. Obviously had a really sort of deep ball infection that knocked him off his feet for a while, but he's getting stronger. Ashley Barnes had a little minor setback, so he's still a bit of time away and needs game time as well. Maxwell's made really good progress. He's been on the grass today. So it comes back into the thinking. We'll have to be, careful and decide with him. Excuse me. Kevin Long's back in after COVID case, and two others we're waiting at the end of their COVID spell. So we're hopeful that they come back in the next 24 hours as well. But Josh Browner won't, obviously, because of the protocols.
And in terms of Cornet, what would be your main considerations as to whether you play him or not?
Just true fitness, availability through his injury, how he's feeling, the risk and reward scenarios, making sure he's already had a couple of minor things that have ended up a little, well, this one's a bit unfortunate because he had COVID during it. He wasn't particularly ill, but obviously we all know the protocols, they're not allowed in the building, etc., etc., etc. So it delays, the fitness work and the true return, if you like. A number of things to be factored in. And of course, he's only trained for a few days as well, although he's felt strong. He has done some work with the sports scientist, just to be clear, quite obviously. But what I mean is trained football-wise only for a couple of days. So we'll see how we put all that into the melting pot and make a decision. But it'll also be with Maxwell as well. He's really, really open lad, asking how he's feeling, how he feels about his body as well.
In terms of the postponements and other games gone, Newcastle, Southampton, are you happy with how it's being determined whether a game goes ahead or not?
It's not about me being happy or not. It's the powers that be that make the decisions. They're the ones who control football, certainly not me.
Do you think there's a danger, though, some teams would get an advantage at the end of all this?
That's up to the teams to decide how they're going about it. The Premier League are the ones controlling it, so it'll be on their shoulders, whichever way they're making decisions on why the games are off. So like I say, I think we're all, their drums the beat that we're all dancing to, no one else's.
And you've got a couple of games in hand. How confident are you feeling that you can turn this around, that you can see a change of fortunes as you head into 2022 and move out of the relegation places?
Yeah, very confident. The performance levels have been generally high. The detail, I've unfortunately broken record time again. The details are so vital in any game, and the margins, etc., etc. We have to obviously change that, but the mentality is still firm. We're at Man United last night with 3 down, we nick a goal. Second half, we have 3 really good chances in the last 3-4 minutes of the game. So the mentality is good to keep taking the game on and keep trying to win games. The details within it, excuse me, personnel being fit and ready, etc., etc. So very confident going forward.
And how busy do you envisage being in January in the transfer market? Do you feel you need reinforcements?
Whether I feel that I need them or not, the market will dictate. It often does. Money available, players available, etc., etc. There's a lot that needs to fall into place for deals to get done, particularly in January.
You're not targeting any positions then at this stage?
No, we've always got our ear to the ground. We've always got our mind open. We've always got our scouts looking at many positions for the shifting sands of the market if needs be.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Rob Scanlon, PLP.
Hi, Sean. Happy New Year to you. Personally, professionally, how much have you enjoyed the last 12 months?
Well, I've had more enjoyable 12 months, to be honest. Than the last 12 months. I think we all have. It's been, a real challenge for many ways in life, and a lot to fathom out, a lot to make sense of, loads of challenges. But that's, like I say, it's not just me. It's everyone in life. It's not just me. It's not just football. Everyone's having varying challenges of their own.
In terms of this game that starts the new year, how big a challenge is it? How important is it in the context of your season?
They're all important, make no mistake. The games around you are obviously considered more important, but the facts are the facts. At the end of the season, these games, regardless, you only get 3 points if you win. You don't get extra points. So the idea being you need to win the games, you need to get points on the table. That much I know about the Premier League, and that's the most important factor. Excuse me, when and where they come from. will be determined as the season goes on. But the main thing is to get the points on the table. So we'll be working hard in every game as we did last night, and we'll be taking that mentality to the next one at least.
I know your focus is to concentrate on yourselves and the good work you're doing, but what have you made of Leeds, the injuries, the form that they've endured?
Well, I think, they had such a flying season last season. It is tough, when you've got to repeat that. They set the bar very high with the way they went about it, the way they played, the performance levels, and the kind of freedom, if you like, that first season in the Premier League can bring sometimes. I think they probably knew. I think their managers are very straight-minded, straight-talking. Seems to me a very knowledgeable fellow about what he wants from his team and how he goes about it. I would imagine within that he'd have been realistic and thought, can we build on it? Maybe. But is there a challenge going forwards that possibly will mean it's going to be a tougher season? Yeah, I would imagine he'd been aware of that. Certainly well-travelled enough to be aware of that. It's not easy season on season, doing it in the Premier League to the level they did last season. And then you add in the challenges, like we've all had, injuries and the COVID situation, and, ups and downs of players and form and signing new players and all the challenges that come with trying to mould a team and keep moulding it and remoulding it every season. So within all of that, performance-wise, they're still in there. They've got more points than us currently. They've managed to get some wins on the table. So, they're still a decent outfit, but they're maybe not pairing as much as they were last season.
Just finally from me, Aaron Lennon goes back to the club that kind of made him, really developed him. How pleased have you been with his output recently, and how closely are you having to manage him? I think you mentioned after the Manchester United game.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been playing regularly as in starting. He's been, involved in everything. So last night, we had to be commonsensical. He put a lot of effort into a performance and played very well. We were well aware of that, quite obviously. We thought he could do a job in there. We knew from his past, and we like what we've been seeing in training. We tried out in a training game because we had an 18-day period, and he did very well. And I thought he did very well last night. So, yeah, him going back to the club where he really sort of made his early name, I'm sure he'll be pleased with that and how his career's gone since then to where it is now.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Dan Jewell, Radio Lance.
Hello.
Hi, Billy.
You must be fed up of doing this already over this Christmas period.
It's my favourite part of the week.
I'm aware. Just on the Leeds thing, we've spoken a few times, obviously, because you've been in the Premier League for a few years now. There have been quite a lot of examples of this. From your own experience, how hard is it to replicate what you do in that first season, or to keep things fresh when you're no longer a surprise for opposition, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, it does come with its difficulties. Excuse me. Some clubs make an easier pathway second and third season. Some find it tough. Varying reasons for that, I think. You can look at every club as an individual, whichever way it pans out for them. I think sometimes you forget how strong Leeds' season was last season, what it took to get there. So to keep that consistency and of course consistency, not just the performance, but the fitness of your squad. Obviously, a lot of challenges with that, with injuries and COVID, except, COVID's not the norm, obviously, previous to COVID. The injuries and the ups and downs of player signings, and you might lose some players, then you've got player contracts, and players often, the agents now want more bigger contracts for the players, and, a lot more outside noise, I think. When the hunger and desire is there to get there, and then that first hungry season when everyone's open-minded about the challenge and playing with freedom, and then that second season sometimes comes, and all the things I mentioned kind of get involved, and then all of a sudden it's like a reality. I always think when a player, whatever level you played at, when you step up the next one, you think, right, I've got to do this every week now. This is not just like one season. If this is my life as a Premier League player, this is not one season's work. This is whatever, 5, 7, 8 seasons' work. So I think that can take an adjustment mentally as well as physically to kind of, it's hard to explain, but to almost rubber stamp yourself that you are a bona fide Premier League player. And some of their players at Leeds have had to earn the right to get there. They work very, very hard, similar to some of the players at Sheffield United. What they did and what they achieved, and then that second season it gets difficult. Other teams have made it easier. Other teams have found it easier. But Leeds are still in reasonable shape. People forget that. I just think they set the bar so high last season, and then they're looking to try and achieve that again. And I think it was going to be a tough ask. But they're certainly no mugs. We know they've got players who can play. They know they've spent a lot of money. They know they've got a manager who certainly has a clear view of what he wants from his team. So there's still a challenge, and every game is in the Premier League.
Do you think that's still the case for your players, even after all these years and all these seasons, Sean? You come into the Premier League and you kind of almost prove yourself as a Premier League player, and then year on year on year, you've got to consolidate that and make sure you stay there?
Yeah, I think what it does, it gives you an awareness and an understanding and a knowledge of what the Premier League is. You know, if you stay in there for more seasons, as a player, this is, and well, under me as manager and my staff, but, you know, if we're looking for a player point of view, that reaffirms the consistency you need, that reaffirms the confidence. And, you know, I was mentioning that borderline tiny bit of arrogance you need to be a footballer and go into these stadiums and play with true belief, if you like. And the experience that comes with that and using that experience. Now, we have got an experienced group. That's pleasing for me because, like I say, they're aware of the challenge. They know the realities. They know it's not easy, but equally, they know that what we need to do and how we go about it to make sure that we look after ourselves. So, you know, we're looking to join the dots ourselves without worrying too much about everyone else.
Those dots, how hard is it proving to find that optimum balance? Because there have been games like Man United where you create chances, but you've conceded goals. There have been games where you've looked solid defensively and perhaps not created so much.
Yeah, it's we've spoken about it all season. Most managers do, even the top ones. The open side of the game to go in effect and be proactive in attacking. The closed side of the game to kind of shut the opposition down and not give them the gaps, not give them the chances, if you like. And then within that, the detail. And that's currently, for our season, that's been the story so far. Not far away either end of making chances or defending properly, but finding the details, finding the killer moments in attack and shutting down their chance of killer moments in defence. And like I say, it's always tight with us. I don't think it's ever not been tight, but we've made a really nice habit of making sure we're on the right side of the margins. So I know it's there, and now it's about continuing the work, keep believing in the work to go and make sure we are the right side of it. And last night we had three big chances with literally 5 minutes to go, 4 or 5 minutes to go. That in itself's a big task at Old Trafford when you're 3-1 down. And we're still going. The mentality's firm, the way we're going about it, still trying to get something from the game. So, you know, the mentality is good, the physicality is good. Some of the play last night was very good. It's them final moments, the final key moments at both ends of the pitch.
I think the last time you were in the relegation zone at this time of year, Sean, you got something crazy like 2/3 of your total points in the second half of the season. How do you go about doing that again?
Well, historically, since I've been here, we've been strong in the second parts of the season. Whatever challenge we've had, we've done that well. That usually means that there's some good work done by my staff and keep the players in good fitness and good mental health and well-being, you know, to take on the challenge of what it is. I think there's a good belief in what we're doing, and I think the players know how close we are to making things right and making them in our favour. So it bodes well, but the thing is, like I say, we can talk about it and I can analyse it and I can show you stats, facts and everything. But the biggest stat and fact that you ever need is to look at that league table and show your position, and that bit we've got to correct.
Talk about 2021. Obviously, it's a time when people will reflect on the calendar year, and I know you're not a big reflections kind of fella, but it's a year since the club was taken over, which obviously was a big change for supporters to get used to. How different is the club now to how it was 12 months ago?
Well, lots of change in the modelling of the club, you know, in the office side, not so much in our side of the football side, but lots of change of the ground, lots of new ideas, different ways of working, different ways of trying to sort of promote the feel of the club and the brand and change it and alter it, but without going away from the authenticity of it, you know, without going away from the fact it's a town club, it's very well respected by the fans and the people of Burnley. Likewise, the club's very respectful of the people of Burnley and the fans. So keeping that connection, but stretching it to try and find new ways of working and new ways of operating. And it's a delicate balance, but I think the club are changing. They're putting different things in place that allows that to happen. While doing that, we want to get it right on the pitch as well, because that joins the dots definitely as a club.
Would it be fair to say it's a relatively slow process? You've not been able to go out and spend lots of money and bring lots of players in, but you have been able to add to the squad a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to do more so in the future.
Yeah, I mean, building a club was certainly the origins of my time here. I think Alan and the people who got involved want to add on to that and their own kind of feel and their own twists and turns, their own different ways of marketing the club and branding, etc., etc. But as I said, trying to build it in a process, trying to build it with a structure and organisation, it's not easy. It sounds easy, all these things do when you're talking about you write down on a bit of paper. But you're dealing with a lot of changes at any one time and trying to make everyone's nose point in the right direction. So it does take time.
How's it been on the pitch in 2021? There's a statistic knocking about for points per game in the calendar year, and I think you're bottom of the 92. Does that kind of reflect that it's been a difficult 12 months?
It reflects the reality of being in the Premier League. That's what it reflects. If you think you're Burnley in the Premier League and you're going to be winning a lot more than you're not, well, then you're probably a bit naive. The reality challenge to what it is to be Burnley in the Premier League is usually, not always, because we've played some fantastic seasons, 7th and 10th with 54 points a match in the 7th season and the like. But most seasons have been a big challenge for us. This one's no different. The year has been a big challenge for many people, not just for us in football, but as we are talking about football, then it's been a challenge for us without a doubt. The idea of points per games and all that kind of stuff, really, it means nothing. And what means the most is being in the Premier League. We are in the Premier League. We deserve to be there. We've earned the right to be there. And now the challenge is to continue that.
And I suppose having been there for a number of seasons, you know the value of that. You don't take it for granted.
No, definitely not. You can't take the Premier League for granted. You maybe can. I know I use the term all the time, but the superpower clubs, the big six, maybe there's a couple of others nowadays. Obviously Leicester have grown as a club, the way they put finance, but also the team that they are, and Everton similar and that sort of thing. But generally, you would imagine that the big six, there are ups and downs, but they're probably going to be in and around it. For everyone else, it can be a challenge every season in the Premier League.
And this is apropos of nothing and not related to anything, but I need a new pair of shoes, Sean. And you're the guy for advice here. What's the number one thing I should be looking for?
Well, it's a little bit of a misconception. I'm only the guy that likes handmade leather shoes. I'm not going to start giving fashion advice, particularly to you because you're a man of high fashion.
I wasn't really thinking about the fashion. I was more thinking about the considerations of what makes a good pair of shoes.
It's fair to say that I was joshing about your fashion sense. But I would suggest a good pair of handmade leather shoes, possibly from my home county of Northampton. And still some fine shoemakers there, although they've shrunk a bit in size due to the world's demand of different styles of shoes. But usually a welted sole, handmade, hand-stitched, ideally. Depends what your finance suggests, let's say, in the shoe market.
I think we both know that I'm not at the top end of the market. I'm not a superpower club.
I'm not a superpower club either, but it's fair to say I like to dip my toe in some of the better end of the market shoe-wise. Now and again, not always.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Dan. Phil Medlicott, PA.
Hi, Sean. We mentioned briefly earlier on the January signings, the January window. I was just wondering when it comes to looking at players that you might potentially sign, would you be looking to actively avoid unvaccinated players for obvious reasons?
No, I don't think so. I think it's everyone's right to make a decision. I'm pro it, obviously, excuse me, and I'm pro it with my players, but they still have their own rights to make a decision. And until someone suggests that you have to do that and you have to be vaccinated, that might change. I don't think that will probably happen. But no, it wouldn't be the first thing I'm thinking, that's for sure.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, I know you spoke a bit about this earlier in the week, but just to be clear, the Premier League introducing 5 subs per match to sort of help with the fixture backlog, is that something that you wouldn't be in favour of, I think? No.
Another misconception. I just offered a view, and my view was, for one, I won't make the decision. And for two, it suggests that the superpowered clubs just have a bit more of a leeway because they often carry big squads of top international footballers from all around the globe. So if you can change 5 at any game, then that must have some kind of advantage, in my opinion. But it's only a view. I never said it was the exact view. It was only my view.
That's great. Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. Alex Jones, Alex Live.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Just on the COVID situation, just to double check, then you haven't had any new positive cases. It's just
no, not so far. Not so far. We've got another. We get tested every day, but the next round of PCR testing will be tomorrow.
And I think you mentioned that Josh Brownhill wouldn't be back, but you were perhaps hopeful on 2 of the 4 being back out of isolation. Given what we spoke about earlier in the week, is it as simple as they're out of isolation, therefore they're in the squad, or do you have to take into some consideration whether they're sort of fit to play given the limited training they'll have been able to do?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we put on the Zoom call with the Premier League, the idea of the way that I can only speak of football, by the way, I can't speak of outside football, the way it's affecting the footballers that we know at our club, and I've heard from a number of different people in the game, has been very, very minimal. So we're offering the view of, well, if it is minimal, could we bring them players in once they feel well, even, if they've had raised temperatures or heart rates or whatever the knock-on effect can be, with the amount of monitoring we've got now available, could it be that them players come in? Because if we keep getting games called off, at least the players who are having a lockdown period could come in their own cars, in their own clothes. No one touches them, quite obviously. They stay away from everyone. But from a distance, you can still monitor the work like they're doing. We could still feed down from their GPS, from their heart monitors, how their body's responding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, in theory, I mean, it sounds like, well, it's not that easy, but in theory, when that player now is required on the back of the 7-day period and testing clear, then at least they'd be in readiness to go back in. As it stands at the moment, with them not being allowed in at all, then it's difficult, they've got a sort of lockdown. They've got to find a way, usually on maybe a watt bike or something, of ticking over. It's not the same as being on the grass and running and being that kind of fitness edge, if you like. Possibly the knock-on effect could, in theory, be less games being called off if this virus keeps going through everyone. It looks like it probably, it seems to be we're all going to get it, or the way it's going at the minute at some point. Possibly that would help more players be available when they return, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I say, these are only views that a few of us shared on the Zoom call. These are not exact moments in time. The Premier League, the science on the Premier League, the medical side of the Premier League, they've got all the information and some of the thoughts that we have. It's down to them, and of course guided by central government and what they're allowed to do, what they can do.
With that in mind, and obviously Nick Pope was one of the ones that you were missing in the week. How sort of pleasing was it to see Wayne Hennessy come in and perform the way he did?
Yeah, really good. We know what Wayne knows about in the dressing room, the way he is, the way he conducts himself, first class, incredibly humble guy for having done a lot in his career and still going, still active, still wants to do it, still working hard. Made a couple of fantastic saves last night.
Just following on from what Dan mentioned on ALK, have ALK and Alan Pace sort of a year in been pretty much what you expected and perhaps also what you wanted in terms of being able to stretch the finances a little bit in the summer and also letting you get on with your job and managing the team?
Yeah, it's a different kind of process, different people, learning about them learning about not just me, but the club and the feel of the club. A lot of the work has been done away from the football side into the office side and the running of the club on that side. And like I say, the marketing, the branding. On our side, there has been, as you suggested, some input on the player recruitment and certainly financially. And I think it needs to continue to be just stretched. I've always said that. It's not about, the club's been built very, very wisely over a long, long period of time financially and the way it's been built and the slow but good progress, high quality progress in many areas, I feel. And now it's about, can you keep adding on to that without ripping the heart out of it? So I think that's the key, and that's the balance, I think, that Alan will be looking for, injecting enough support with staffing, with finance as well, and into the team, without kind of ripping it all to bits and saying, right, we're going to do everything completely different. I think it's a delicate process, I think.
And just lastly for me on January, obviously you don't operate with the biggest squad. You like to sort of keep 2021 outfield players. Do you feel perhaps more of a necessity to try and add if you can in January, given that, as you said, everyone's probably likely to get COVID at some point? You're going to lose players to COVID, you're obviously going to lose players to injuries and suspensions, or do you see enough in what you've got that you'll be able to get through this season and stay up?
Well, I don't think you can just, or certainly we can't just sign a player just purely because of the risk of COVID. I don't think we could do that. I certainly don't think Alan would be keen on that, just signing any old player because of the risk of COVID. But it does have to be factored into slightly, the thinking, I understand. I think it's more about, what the team may need, what we can operate in. If there's finance available, what level is it at? Possible shifting sands with our own players, although unlikely. We think all the squad will be here, the current squad that is. And it's always an ongoing process. I say it all the time. We don't just cherry pick because it's often we can't. We have to keep with the process from our recruitment staff, keep with the open lines of communication and the awareness of players and their situations. And then if and when the moment's right and we have the backing and support, then we'll go and press the green button and get on with things.
Is that backing and support there for the right player then, do you think, in terms of budget?
We'll see.
Nice one. Thanks, Sean. Happy New Year. All the best for Sunday.
Thanks, and you. Cheers.
Thanks, Alice. Chris Borden, Burnley Express.
Oh, he's still on camera. You getting on camera nowadays? Is he getting on camera?
Yeah, it is today.
All right. Well, then, Chris, lucky you.
The absence of daily writers, unfortunately. Yeah, just no, just so we're not asked about contract for a while, but is that a sort of? I suppose it's a bit of a strange situation if until you know which league you're going to be in. Do you know which of the lads you'd like to keep?